I paid for my niece's college application fees, wrote her recommendation letters, and edited her essays. She got in, then thanked her uncle publicly for all the support. That uncle wasn't me. My wife said not to be petty, so I sent a message her dean will never forget. I'm not proud of what I did, but I don't regret it either. My name's Raymond. I'm 46. I live in Ann Arbor, Michigan. I work at the University of Michigan in academic advising, and for years I've helped students navigate their way through college applications, career paths, and personal essays. It's what I do, and I'm damn good at it. That's why, when my niece Marissa started talking about applying to college, everyone just assumed I'd help. And I did. Not because I was asked nicely, not because anyone offered to pay me for my time, but because that's what you do for family. Or at least, that's what I used to believe. Marissa is my wife Leah's brother's daughter. Her dad, Eric, is one of those guys who looks like a success story but has zero follow-through. Always with some big opportunity on the horizon. One of those charming failures who skates through life on personality alone. He'd show up to birthdays with flashy gifts and leave before cake. Never once showed up for a parent-teacher conference or paid for a school trip. But somehow, in my wife's family, he's the golden boy. So when Marissa started talking about applying to Northwestern, University of Chicago, Duke, and Cornell, I knew she'd need serious help. Her parents had no idea how the college application process worked. They thought it was back in the 80s, show good grades, write a paragraph, and you're in. Leah asked me first, "Can you just look at her essay? Maybe give her some tips?" Sure. That was the first ask. Harmless. But it didn't stop there. Over the next 6 months, I was pulled deeper into that girl's college journey than I ever intended. She'd call or text me late at night in full-on panic mode. "Uncle Ray, does this sound too stiff? Can you look at my Common App essay? What should I say for the why Northwestern question?" I rewrote 3 of her essays from scratch. She'd send me half-baked thoughts at 11 p.m. and expect polished versions by morning. I did it. Every time. I was the safety net. Then came the recommendation letters. She asked me to write one as myself, which was fine. But then she asked if I could write another one, this time from a former summer employer who supposedly mentored her in community work. It didn't sit right with me, but I did it. I used a generic name and sent it through a separate email account. I should have said no, but I convinced myself I was just helping. Her parents? Nowhere to be found. Her dad was too busy consulting with some startup that never actually launched, and her mom was focused on yoga retreats and Pinterest recipes. The only person in her corner was me, and I thought foolishly that mattered. Then the email came, "Congratulations. You've been admitted to Northwestern University. Early decision." She got the spot. Leah and I were thrilled for her. We planned a small dinner, just family, nothing fancy. I showed up straight from campus, still in my work clothes, tired but proud. I figured maybe I'd get a quiet thank you. Just something small. Instead, Marissa stands up at the end of the dinner, glass raised, and says, "I just want to thank someone who really believed in me. Someone who told me I could do this when no one else did. Uncle Eric." I swear my heart stopped. Everyone clapped. Her dad actually gave a mock bow like he deserved it. My jaw tightened. I looked over at Leah. She just gave me that look. You know the one. Like, don't make a scene. Afterwards, I pulled Marissa aside. Quietly. Calmly. I asked her, "Why would you thank Eric? He didn't do anything." She blinked, shrugged, and said, "He was always emotionally supportive. I mean, you were helpful too. But he's family." That's when I realized, in her mind, I wasn't family. I was a tool. A resource. Something she used and discarded. I went home that night and told Leah how insulted I felt. She rolled her eyes and said, "Don't be petty. She's just a kid. Let it go." But I couldn't let it go. I'd spent over 40 hours helping her. I paid for 8 application fees, hundreds of dollars out of my own pocket. I wrote essays, letters, and coached her through mock interviews. And she gave public credit to a man who never showed up. So I waited. 3 weeks later, I composed a professional email to the admissions department at Northwestern. I explained that I had concerns about one of their admitted students. I told them I'd written 2 recommendation letters, one under my own name and one under a fictional name at her request. I attached the letters. I included screenshots of our emails and text threads, timestamps, and drafts. I didn't ask them to revoke her admission. I simply said, I felt obligated to report this breach of ethics as someone who works in higher education. What happened after that? That's when things started unraveling for Marissa and her golden father. And it's far from over. I started to think maybe they'd ignored it. Maybe they saw it as some family dispute and filed it under, not our problem. But then, on a cold Thursday morning in late February, I got a call from a 312 area code, Chicago. It was the Office of Undergraduate Admissions at Northwestern. The woman on the phone introduced herself, confirmed my identity, and thanked me for coming forward. She asked a few clarifying questions, mostly about the timeline and how I came to be involved in writing the second recommendation letter. I answered honestly. I told her I regretted letting it happen, but I wanted to set the record straight. She thanked me again and said they'd be conducting a formal inquiry. That call lasted 7 minutes. But I knew what it meant. They were taking it seriously. About a week later, the family group chat blew up. It started with Marissa posting a vague message. "I'm so sick of people trying to ruin things for others." Then Leah's phone started lighting up. Her brother Eric was calling nonstop. I could hear him yelling through the speaker from across the kitchen. "You know what your husband did? He's trying to sabotage my daughter's future." Leah stood in the middle of the kitchen, stunned. She had no idea I'd reported it. I hadn't told her. That night, she looked at me with disgust. "You went behind my back," she said. "You reported our niece to her school?" I didn't back down. "You told me not to be petty." So I wasn't. I was professional. What she did was unethical. She asked me to lie, and I did. But I'm not covering it up. Leah didn't talk to me for 2 days. Then the letter arrived at Eric's house. Marissa had to attend a formal disciplinary meeting with Northwestern's admissions board. According to Leah, they were investigating her entire application for irregularities. That was the word they used. Eric called me that night, full of fire. "You smug piece of shit," he said. "You jealous? You mad she didn't thank you? You just ruined her future because you got your feelings hurt." I told him flat out. "You didn't help her." I did. And she didn't just forget. She erased me. Then she asked me to lie, and I was stupid enough to do it. That's on me. But covering it up? That's on you. He threatened to make sure everyone knows what a bitter, pathetic man I am. He hung up before I could respond. A few days later, my department chair at the university called me into his office. Someone I already knew who had reported me for misconduct and boundary violations with a student applicant. Luckily, I had all my receipts. Emails, text threads, timestamps showing that everything was done at Marissa's request, under her direction. She was the one who asked me to fabricate. I documented everything. Still, it shook me. My reputation was on the line. I've spent nearly 2 decades building a career on integrity and mentorship, and suddenly I was being painted as some manipulative creep who sabotaged a teenage girl's dreams. And Leah? She stopped defending me. I overheard her on the phone with her mother saying, "Raymond just can't let things go. He always has to win." At that point, I knew this wasn't just about Marissa anymore. This was about something deeper. A family that never respected me. A wife who always saw me as second place to her charming screw-up of a brother. A system that rewards liars with applause and treats the truth like betrayal. But I wasn't done. Marissa's disciplinary hearing was coming up, and I had one more card to play, something that would finally tip the scales. Because there was one thing I hadn't told anyone yet. Something that could change everything. Marissa's disciplinary hearing was set for March 14th. Northwestern's process is private, internal, and brutal. I'd seen it from the other side when similar cases came across my desk. They don't mess around with dishonesty in admissions. But just days before her hearing, something unexpected happened. I got a message from someone I hadn't heard from in over a decade. Her name was Diana. We dated back in grad school, briefly, before I met Leah. Now she was a junior administrator at Northwestern. She'd seen my name in connection to the inquiry and reached out privately. "I can't talk much," she said over a secured call. "But you need to know, this thing is bigger than just the recommendation letter." Someone flagged inconsistencies in Marissa's essays. They ran plagiarism software. Some of her content matched published blogs and one grad student's thesis. It's serious. I was stunned. I hadn't written those essays for her. I just edited them. But if she'd been lifting whole sections from other sources, that was on her. Diana couldn't say much more. She just warned me that if things went the way the board was leaning, Marissa might not just lose her admission, she might be blacklisted from applying to other elite universities for years. And then came the real twist. Diana told me one more thing, and this part knocked the wind out of me. She said, "The name you used in that second recommendation letter?" One of the board members recognized it. Turns out, it matched a real person, a donor who passed away 2 years ago. They think you might have tried to impersonate someone with legacy ties. That's when I realized Marissa gave me that name. I didn't even question it. She told me the fake reference was from a mentor at a summer nonprofit she'd volunteered at. It never existed. But she used a real name, someone with history tied to the university. Suddenly, it wasn't just her on the line. It was me. I called Marissa. First time I'd spoken to her since the dinner. She didn't answer. So I left a voicemail. "I don't know where you got that name for the second letter, but you've dragged me into something much bigger than I signed up for. If you don't come clean about what you asked me to do, I'm prepared to submit the full text logs and proof you directed every step." No reply. The next day, Eric showed up at my house. Unannounced. Furious. "You're trying to bury my daughter," he shouted from the porch. "You've always been jealous of this family. I should have known Leah marrying you was a mistake. You think a few essays and some emails mean you built her future?" I didn't let him in. I shut the door in his face. But what got to me wasn't his rage, it was that Leah didn't say a word about it. She knew he'd come. She didn't warn me. She didn't check in after. She just went silent. It hit me hard. She had taken their side. I went to our guest room that night and started gathering everything. Emails, screenshots, texts, even a couple of old voice notes where Marissa outright said, "Can you make it sound like someone older wrote this?" And, "I don't want to ask my dad. He'll just screw it up." If they were going to pull me down, I was going to drag the truth out into the open first. That's when I made the decision. I drafted a full written statement and sent it. Not just to Northwestern's disciplinary board, but to their legal counsel and the office of the provost. I made sure they understood. I had nothing to hide. I admitted my role. I laid out every detail. I made it clear that the name in the second letter was given to me by Marissa, and I showed the proof. Then I sent one more email to Leah's parents, with copies. What happened next would tear that perfect family image apart forever. The email I sent to Leah's parents didn't have any drama. Just facts. I didn't curse, didn't insult. I simply laid out what had happened, point by point. How I'd been asked to help. How I paid the fees. How I edited the essays. How Marissa handed me a name that turned out to belong to a deceased donor. How I warned her. How she ignored me. And how her father showed up at my house screaming while Leah said nothing. I attached the documents, screenshots, emails, a full timeline, and I ended it with one sentence. "I thought you should know the truth, since you've only been told one version of it." Leah's mom replied the next morning. A 2-line email. "We're very disappointed in how this has been handled. We'll be praying for all involved." That was it. No one asked to hear my side. No one called to talk. And Leah? She told me she wished I hadn't sent that email. "You just escalated it. They're grieving enough," she said. Grieving what? That their granddaughter got caught lying? That their golden son didn't save the day? I knew then, really knew, that I was done trying to fix things with her family. I was done pretending I hadn't been used. But things didn't stop there. 2 weeks later, I got an official email from Northwestern's office of the provost. They thanked me for my cooperation, said they concluded their investigation. They wouldn't share the outcome due to privacy laws, but I didn't need them to. I got a call from Diana again, this time more direct. "She's out," she said quietly. They rescinded the offer. But that's not the worst of it. Apparently, because of the plagiarism, the fake letter, and the fact that it involved impersonation of a deceased university figure, they reported the case to the Common App and the National Application Clearinghouse. That meant every college she applied to, even backups, would now be flagged. Marissa wasn't just out at Northwestern. She was radioactive. The family didn't know that part yet, but I did. And Leah? She barely looked at me anymore. We lived in the same house but barely spoke. She moved into the guest room, told me she needed space. I didn't argue. I knew what that meant. A week later, I filed for separation. Not because of Marissa. Because I saw the truth about my marriage. For 14 years I'd worked, supported, and bent over backwards to prove myself to a family that never saw me as one of their own. I was always the outsider. The one who was good for errands, advice, and favors. But not the one you thank in public. And when the truth finally came out, they didn't care about what was right. They cared about how it made them look. But I wasn't finished yet. Because Marissa still had her reputation in her local community, her church, her Instagram account where she posed with inspirational quotes and scholarship advice. She still played the role of the perfect overachiever, the underdog who rose. And I had proof that it was all a lie. So I started preparing the next part. It wouldn't be loud. It wouldn't be dramatic. But it would be permanent. I didn't need to scream. I didn't need to post anything public or get into another shouting match with Eric or Leah or anyone else. All I had to do was send one last email. Marissa had built this image around herself in the local community, the first-gen Ivy-bound kid, the young woman of faith and resilience, who spoke at her church youth group about hard work and beating the odds. She had been featured in a local paper for her journey from small-town roots to elite university halls. There were donation drives, people who sent money for her dorm costs. Even a GoFundMe her mom quietly ran to support her educational dream. So I took everything, every file, every essay she didn't write, every edited Word doc with track changes, the fake recommendation letters, the receipts for the application fees I paid, and I sent it in a secure drive to 3 places. The church where she spoke every month, the local journalist who had written that glowing article, the administrator of the scholarship foundation that gave her $10,000 based on integrity and self-advocacy. I didn't write a single opinion. Just, as someone involved in this student's application process, I felt obligated to ensure full transparency about how her admission and scholarship materials were created. Documents attached. That was it. 3 days later, the fallout began. The church pulled her from the youth group leadership list. Quietly, of course, but someone I knew confirmed it. She was on pause and not scheduled to speak again. The foundation contacted her school district. Her scholarship was under review. And the local paper? They pulled the article from their online archives. She posted something cryptic on Instagram. When people try to tear you down, God lifts you higher. But then, her comments section blew up. Because someone, not me, had forwarded the evidence to a few people from her graduating class. In Teenagers Talk, she went private, deleted a bunch of photos, tried to pivot. But the story was out. The last I heard, she's planning to take a year off to regroup before reapplying next cycle. Good luck with that. With a flagged Common App and a reputation for fraud, she's not going anywhere elite. Maybe community college, if they'll have her. As for Leah, we finalized our divorce quietly 6 months after I moved out. No kids, no major assets to fight over. But she did try to get the house. I let her have it. Because I already had a new apartment near campus, a raise from a department that backed me, and a clear conscience. Eric? Still spinning his wheels. Still telling people I sabotaged Marissa's future. But now when he says that, people ask him, then why was the application full of lies? And that silence, that long, bitter silence when he can't answer? That's my revenge. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't threaten anyone. I just told the truth, and I let it burn.